By yon bonny banks and by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, me and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. You'll take the high road and I'll take the low road, and I'll get to Scotland afore you. But me and my true love will never meet again by the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. My name is Kpanie Addy, and as a Catholic priest I have a title, Reverend Father. So Kpanie Addy is my name. And being a Jesuit, there is the honorific SJ at the end. So full Reverend Father Kpanie Addy SJ, Society of Jesus. Edinburgh was one of the alternatives of options. I had a keen interest in African studies. And I was exploring the possibility in terms of various places in the United Kingdom. So one of them was Cambridge, another was Edinburgh, and another was Birmingham. And I put in applications to all of these institutions. I got two favorable responses from Edinburgh, from the School of Divinity, and also from African Studies. And the School of Divinity came with a scholarship, and as you would know too well, these things are important. So I chose to pursue the Edinburgh connection. I had never been there before, but I was looking forward to it. I was ordained 2014, and I went to Edinburgh in September 2017. So I'd been a priest 3 years previous, already. I call it second missionary journey because I had been to the UK before, to study. I had studied philosophy at Heathrow College, University of London. So I'd been in England, in London, in the years 2008 to 2009. And now I was going back to the United Kingdom, but to the north, to Scotland, and to Edinburgh, which they call the Athens of the North, And I was looking forward to it. A different experience. Still United Kingdom, but quite different. Yeah. I have very good memories of getting there. What happened was I flew into London and stayed in the Jesuit community in, I believe it was Clapham, or something, no, not Clapham, some other place, I can't remember exactly. And then I took the train from King's Cross to Edinburgh Waverley, which is quite a long journey, but it was good. And I remember one Stephen at King's Cross Station who helped me. I took a selfie with him, lovely gentleman, And then I got into Edinburgh Waverley, which is all the way up north. You can see the coasts. You get to Durham, or I can't remember now. A number of places, and it was very nice. And then I got there, and at the station was the superior of the Jesuit community, Father Peter Scully. Very kindly had come to pick me up. And Edinburgh is not a very big place, it's cute, I would say. So we got into the vehicle and made our way to the Jesuit community. On our way, we actually saw where I'd be studying, which is a new college. It has two beautiful towers, there on the mound. So I remember perfectly. I immersed into the Jesuit community and almost simultaneously into the academic community of the University of Edinburgh. It's a walking distance from the Jesuit community, and as you walk down, there's a beautiful castle. The Edinburgh Castle is right there, and it's imposing, and you see it all the time. So there's what they call a grass market, So all these lovely touristic sites. So you walk right down there and get to New College, University of Edinburgh, which is a School of Divinity, and it was a very welcoming place. I call it second hand so I can compare with the first. Whereas London is very anonymous, Mind the gap, please, mind the gap, as you're getting, and you're down in the subway, in the, what do they call it? In America, they call it the metro. In the UK, they call it the underground, exactly, So, and London is fast paced, everybody's running and, Edinburgh was much gentler. People were welcoming. They were, in their Scottish, brogue with a very hard R's. I remember my principal supervisor at for the course manager, we called him, Professor Brian Stanley, the head of the school, the Center for World Christianity, very welcoming. I had corresponded with him prior to arriving. So I got there and, oh, Kpanie, you are here, and welcome, and other people, even the administrative staff, very welcoming. And one of the things I remember very, very well was our initial outing. We did, as a new college community, we went into the hills somewhere. I can't remember again, but it was lovely to just go out on a weekend with our snacks, with our typical sandwiches, and just do a little trek through the hills. Lovely, lovely. It was, so you had a sense of community. It was an effortless, transition, in a very real sense. In a sense, I had been preparing myself. I'd done a number of, because after I did, studies in Nairobi before I was ordained, so there was a 3-year gap. But even in that period, I had been doing a number of research works and the rest. And teaching, correct. I'd been teaching at the seminary here in Accra at Soto, St. Paul's Catholic Seminary, philosophy. So the academic, regime was still there and, remained. So it was quite effortless, and I knew the British system. And there are nuances to the British system that a newcomer should get to know. I'll give you a very funny one. When you meet your supervisor in the British system, and it's usually very tutorial, and there is, what would you like to do? Is this a topic you would like to do? If the supervisor says, do you really want to do that? Red flag. The British are so beautiful and so polite and so nice, but they drop hints. So if a supervisor says, would you really want to do that? You'd be wise to know that you're being told, please don't go in that direction. Some of the essays I wrote, I later published, and I remember my final dissertation, I have been told by my supervisor for that, Dr. Emma Wildwood, to publish either as a book or as two papers, because it was presumably that good. I worked on, you'd enjoy this, I worked on neo-prophetic Pentecostal Christianity in Zimbabwe. Yes, neo-prophetic, and most of the neo-prophetic Pentecostal prophets in Zimbabwe have their spiritual godfathers, that's what they call them, here in Ghana. So the person I worked on is one Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa, and his spiritual godfather is Victor, hang on, I'll remember his name as well. Yes, here in Ghana, he's in Kumasi. I had lived in Zimbabwe at the time about 6 years. I studied there in Zimbabwe for 4 years, and then I taught in Zimbabwe as part of my Jesuit training for 2 years. So a total of 6 years. I knew the terrain, I knew how to get around, and I was fascinated. Actually, it's one younger Jesuit called Frank Taruona, who said to me, because I was interested in what they call the Vapostory, the white garment churches, African initiated churches. Right. Exactly. That was my initial interest. And he said to me, have you considered these prophets? And then I said, wow. Then, because when I was a student, they were not that popular, but suddenly they had blossomed, or they had burgeoned, So you had people like Emmanuel Makandiwa and others, Walter, Magai, there are a number of them now. Yeah, so that's what I worked on. And I did field work in Harare, in places like Chitungwiza, and it was fun. I did, you wouldn't believe this, a Catholic priest doing his 31st night, crossover service in the Pentecostal church as part of my research field work. Yeah. The 1 year is part of the attraction for me with respect to the British system. that whereas in other, academic areas, they have a different regime. In the UK, British system, it's 1 year for a master's, and that's attractive to me. I think in the United States, you'd have to do about 2 years. A lot of it is coursework, etc. In fact, just today, I was chatting with a friend in the Philippines, and he mentioned that he was going to do his master's in 3 years, which I thought is quite a bit. But I loved the 1 year, and it was adequate in terms of everything that you've mentioned, in terms of the reading, in terms of the research, in terms of the field work and social life as well, everything, and even the writing. Now, I had, funny enough, in the 1 year, I had two different outings. Times I went out of Edinburgh to the place of my research, Zimbabwe. So I was in Zimbabwe at the tail end of 2017 into 2018. That's when I did the crossover service. I remember very well. The theme for Makandiwa was the year of territorial dominance, I remember. And then I had another time, a longer period of time of about, I think, 6 weeks, sometime from end of April to beginning of June, again for my field work in Harare. And so that was field work, I being in Zimbabwe meant that I was seeing old friends, so I did something like, which you may know, the Harare International Festival of the Arts, HIFA, lots of good fun there, which was in Zimbabwe. But even in Edinburgh also in August, there's what they call the Fringe. Lovely, it's, mwah, so I had the best of both worlds. In terms of the writing was always taking place, and the tutorials, you'd finish an essay and present it to Professor Stanley, and he'd say, well, this is good. You could consider these, others to supplement your work. And that was good. That was fascinating, even different perspectives. That's one of the things I really appreciate, perspectives to the work that you might have thought was complete, but no, there's something else that can be added. So that was the writing. In terms of ordinary writing. Then there was also social life. I used to hang out at the chaplaincy, run by the Dominicans, and I remember meeting some very interesting people. One of them, a very good friend of mine. We got together in interesting circumstances. From Nigeria, Stephen. I called him the Crook of the Craig because you're staying in a place called Craig Crook, I think, And we got on, we're coming from the similar backgrounds in West Africa. On Fridays, we'll meet together for a little drink up, and, just catch up, find out how, he was in engineering, so something totally different. He was, he's Catholic, so we had lots of areas of confluence, that's right. So that was in terms of socialization. Also with the other members of the new college, School of Divinity, would have tea together, would have, chats together. Sometimes after, what do you call them? After the seminars, as we would walking back, we'll sit somewhere and, catch up. It's getting to Christmas now in all over, but, in Edinburgh by now, I think by now the market, the German market, as they call it, is out. And so you have all these, little kiosks selling all kinds of things. And it was good fun. It was wonderful. I had the course manager to begin with, Professor Brian Stanley, I did my essays with. And then when it came to the time for the actual dissertation, I had Dr. Emma Wildwood, who had come in from Cambridge. She herself is an alumna of Edinburgh and had been teaching at Cambridge and had come in, during the period of my time there, an expert on African Christianity, especially Uganda, and other places, I think Congo as well, DRC. So she has, that's her place. Those places are the areas of her expertise and great interest. But very, very capable and helped me navigate the waters of the Zimbabwean context, So I had very good relations with both of them. Brian had been corresponding with prior to going to Edinburgh. I remember one funny thing had to do with the need for me to do an English language test. And he thought it was absurd. I remember Brian and I chatting about this, and you see, I say Brian because perhaps unlike in some of our parts here where we are very stuck up with titles, I mean, I could say Brian, and we could get along very easily. The same with Emma, and there was never, oh, Dr. Emma. No, it was Emma. And I mean, to show you how maternal and in a very good way she was, or she is, when we finished our program, when we had all submitted, all of us who had her as supervisees, she welcomed us to her home, and with her husband and her children, had a meal for us. I think we all carried something, but it was that beautiful, a sense of, camaraderie and family. And I'm still in touch with Emma. I recently sent a book, the autobiography of Archbishop Sappho, that he'd autographed for her. And I sent it to her because it's a relationship thing. It's not only limited to the confines of the academic. No. So, yeah, we had a very good relationship, and I understood her. She understood my interests, and they all supported me, not only in terms of my academic work, but also even in terms of my vocation as a priest. Oh, how is it going at the parish? The Church of the Sacred Heart in Lauriston, was a parish, a Jesuit parish. We've had it for quite a long time, and we had a lovely community. Some elderly, priests, Jesuit priests, and a number of us were students at the university. There was a Zambian Jesuit, a young Zambian, not ordained, called Emmanuel, and then an American who was doing a PhD, Daniel Spotswood. So Daniel Spotswood was doing his PhD, ordained, yes, ordained a year. He was pursuing a PhD in social anthropology, and his interest was in, the Quechua in Chile, or the Quechua, I can't remember where. It was somewhere in South America, or Paraguay or someplace like that. And it was fascinating stuff for him. And we'll talk about these things at table, when we gathered in the evenings. We had shared meals in the evenings. And socials as well. Sundays were excellent. We'll come, Sundays the main meal was lunch, but most other days it was supper. And on Sundays, actually, one of us would cook, So what will happen is that a Ghanaian, I will prepare, groundnut soup, and they'd love it. Oh, this is, with fried plantain, and yes, because there were these Indian shops where you could get fried plantain, you could get yams, and they would love it. It was lovely. And someone else, Mulenga, Emmanuel Chisanga, would prepare something from Zambia, So it was great experience. I didn't come directly from Edinburgh. I went in a kind of circuitous way, because from Edinburgh I went to Zimbabwe, and then from Zimbabwe I went to Zambia, and then from Zambia I went to Rwanda, and finally I ended up in Ghana. Why did I do that? I was exploring. I had been given a new mission, as we call it in the society, a new job of setting up a social justice center, and so I was going to those places in Africa that had established, centers of the type that I was going to start. Jesuit centers. So in Zimbabwe, you had Silvera House in Harare. You had the African Forum for Catholic Social Teaching, AFCAST, in Harare at Arrupe Jesuit University. In Zambia, you have the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, JCTR, very well known, very well established. A big name there, Pete Henrio, and their current provincial Father Chiti. These are people, Father Chiti, Leonard Chiti. These are people who had helped establish JCTR to be what it is now. And then in Rwanda, there is the Jesuit Urumuri Center. Urumuri, I believe, means light in Kinyarwanda. And so that was also a relatively young center. So I visited all these centers, chatting with their directors and coming to a greater understanding of what would be required of me in terms of setting up a center here in Ghana called eventually. At the time, there was nothing. Actually, I remember my superior, we call them the leader of the Jesuits, who had asked me to take up this responsibility, telling me, Kpanie, you're going to be starting ex nihilo, out of nothing, and so there was nothing. There wasn't even a name, so I was, really groping in the dark and seeking light from these Jesuit companions, and eventually came into Ghana sometime in September. October was a period of rest and recreation, and then on the 1st of November 2018, I started. And I think about the 14th thereabout, we had a name, Arrupe Jesuit Institute. I don't know if it's possible. Yeah. And that's Father Pedro Arrupe. He was the 28th Superior General of the Jesuits, a very charismatic figure, originally from Spain, but had worked for a long time in Japan, and a lot can be said about him. I'm sure even a whole interview should be done about Father Pedro Arrupe. But so that's the center we started. Everything, including the design, had to come from somewhere to be conceived and to be realized. So that's what I have been doing, for close to, I would say 3 years. We've done 3 years already, and three very. I'm very pleased. I'd say, to be typically British, I'm as pleased as punch. Why am I pleased? I'll use this as just a little, call it this way, a little node to express what we've been able to achieve. Just as recently as yesterday, I was listening to a YouTube video, and it featured Professor Paul Gifford, who was at SOAS, emeritus professor at SOAS, and has written extensively on African Christianity. And he made reference to a program that the Arrupe Jesuit Institute put together, the Sarpong Theological Lectures, which was organized on the 1st of October this year. And we had the very distinguished recipient of the Ratzinger Prize for Theology, Father Paul Berry, come and give that lecture. And this was cited by Professor Gifford, Paul Gifford, in his lecture, where he makes reference to Paul Berry and the Sarpong Theological Lecture and the Arrupe Jesuit Institute in Ghana. And I thought, wow, we've definitely, in 3 years, to be cited in a lecture by such an authority is phenomenal, I think, yeah. And so I'm very pleased with the work that has taken place in terms of planning, of conceiving, of sowing the seed. Spot on. And I foresee a big tree. I do. And I would say that in many ways, Edinburgh prepared me for that. Edinburgh prepared me for that. I mean, when I think of some of the alumni, from Edinburgh, even here in Ghana, I think there's one of them that you interviewed, Professor Evans Anfong, a great medical, colossus, you'd say, here in Ghana. I have been tasked to set up the Arrupe Jesuit Institute. And what exactly is it? It's a center, a research. It has, I think, in terms of a tripod. Okay, so it's about research. It's about formation, training, and it's also about advocacy. So more or less like a think tank, where there's research, evidence-based research on various issues, social issues. One of the areas we've already started looking at is migration, irregular migration, and with it, human trafficking. So looking at it in terms of research, then formation, looking at changing minds and structures with respect to social problems towards remedy, okay? And then advocacy, looking at policies, campaigns, ways in which we can get people in leadership, people who have the advantage of being in position to effect change, to do so in a way that serves the common good, that serves the Christian view of the world. Call it this way, the kingdom of God. So yeah, that's what the Arrupe Jesuit Institute is all about. And that's what we've been doing for the past close to 3 years now. I've mentioned migration. Another area is youth. We do a lot of work with young people because, as we say almost ad nauseum, the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. And so if we train them well and they have a good perspective about life, we are sure that the future will be bright. So even in terms of something like corruption, earlier this year we did a program at the Christ the King Hall with a number of speakers, including Daniel Yao Domelevo, previous Auditor General, looking at the issue of corruption in our country towards remedy, not just castigating or even lamenting, but always looking at remedial, looking at, yes, what can be done. So that's where we are. That's what I've been doing with the help of various Jesuits and non-Jesuits collaborators, in mission. And I cannot talk about this without emphasizing the support I've received from friends in Edinburgh. I can think of one of many, but one particular person. She wouldn't want me to mention her name. A parishioner at the Church of the Sacred Heart, Lauriston, who has been so generous. Generous with her interest, generous with her prayers, generous with her funds as well. I can think of a vehicle that I'm using presently that serves the purposes of the young people that came as a gift. Well, the money came as a gift. The money was donated, which we used to purchase, a home-used vehicle, which is very helpful. So these
from a benefactor in Edinburgh.
Yeah, from the benefactor in Edinburgh. Yeah. So we've been very graced by the Edinburgh experience, I'll say. It's been an experience of grace and blessing. Having gone there and encountered such good people, I have benefited in terms of my own studies and call it this way, socialization. But the ripple effects are also being felt even in the work that I'm doing now and being experienced by others as well. So I have the fondest of memories. I think the smile says it all. I mean, just looking back, it's hard I can only say, in a very typical British way, lovely people. And I mean, any British who would hear, it's Scottish, it's true, but, lovely, really lovely people, kind-hearted, very concerned, about a person's well-being. How are you? How are you doing? How is it? Do you miss home? That kind of deep concern. It's empathy, yeah. Deep concern and happy, I'll say. I mean, you don't get a sense of sadness. No, they're very happy, very jolly people.